It's time to join Montana's very own and your voice for agriculture, Talkin' Ag Lane Nordland, for today's LaneCast.
Weather. We talk about it every day, whether it's at the kitchen table, at the bar, or wherever it might be. It impacts all of us in agriculture. And joining us here today once again is meteorologist Brian Bledsoe. And Brian, we're here at the Montana Stockgrowers mid-year meeting. For the last few years, you've attended the mid-year meeting and the annual convention, sharing a weather outlook.
Yeah.
And I know producers are eager to hear what you have to say. And I know last year you said buy hay at this meeting. And folks bought hay, and I think they were glad they did, especially for folks in Montana.
Sure.
And of course, we can cover the whole West here today in our conversation, but as we move into the summer, it's the end of May. We're getting a little bit of moisture right now. What are you seeing for the Northern Plains and Rocky Mountain West here in the short term? What is it like in the world of meteorology? What are the things you're watching right now?
Well, a couple of things that are important. I mean, obviously, we came out of a pretty hard winter and I say that a little bit tongue in cheek because last winter we didn't have a winter, and this past winter we actually had some winter weather with some places saw quite a bit of snow out of the deal. And I don't want to say everybody saw a lot of snow because that wasn't the case, but we saw some pretty good winter weather, and we also have seen some good spring moisture, not just in Montana, but also, we really kind of flipped the script from dryness in western Dakotas to a lot of water in those places. Wyoming has been doing better, so on and so forth. So we've been graced with this moisture, at least in the near term, and I'm watching, the weather setup that's coming through next week that's also going to give a good chunk of Montana and parts of the Northern Plains some more good water. So at least through the first couple of weeks here in June, we're really setting up to be in great shape, for the most part. My fear is that the weather pattern will eventually take a turn to a more dry side of things and also warmer. We haven't been terribly warm in an extended period of warm weather, and I'm fearful that once that hits, we're going to go from all the nice moisture we've had to not exactly what we want. And I think that that's probably going to be the theme going forward through the majority of summer.
Yeah, last year we were able to hold on until about July 4th.
Yep.
With decent moisture. So your prediction is that could shut off a little sooner in certain parts of the West?
It could shut off a little sooner. And typically, I don't worry. And my kind of motto is if we're putting water in the ground, that usually will help breed thunderstorm showers and stuff a little bit longer. It gives us a little bit of a bridge to get through. But there have been recent times where we go from all that water to it just kind of stops raining like that. We don't have that nice bridge, or we don't go into that drought or dryness easily. It's very abrupt. So I think if nothing else, we need to be prepared for the drier side of things, and certainly warmer as we progress through the summer. And that's not just necessarily for Montana. That's also, I think, Idaho. And I think that western Montana, Idaho area is probably going to be one of the first areas to dry out, and then it just kind of expands from there.
What are you watching in the ocean regions? What is the current trend of ocean temperature?
The Pacific is still a lot colder than what I would like it to be. That doesn't mean that it's terrible and that we are setting the stage for something big, awful, and nasty to take place across the region. But we have a lot of cold water off just southwest of California, the Baja. That cold water extends all the way out toward Tahiti. We just came off of a La Nina episode. Those sea surface temperatures out there along the equator still really haven't recovered in a great way. That's troubling to me because if we don't see that recovery, at least back to a better version of neutral, that in many cases some areas will slip right back into dryness. And that's throughout the plains. In a large part of the plains have been seeing some good moisture. So I'm a little bit hesitant to say, hey, we're going to skate through this summer just fine. I think there are going to be some challenges.
So for those that get one cutting of dry land hay, things could look good there on that front.
Yes.
But obviously we're getting into the season of video auctions and contracting calves. Looking a little further out, Can folks stretch this grass until this fall? Could we maybe see some fall storms like Central Montana? They got 4 inches of rain back in September that saved so many ranchers from having to ship early. What are some of the indicators right now?
I think those sea surface temperatures along the equator are going to be very key, because if we don't warm things up more in the next couple of months here, it's going to make us that much easier to slip back into La Nina-like conditions as we head into fall and into December. And I don't want to say that we are for sure going to go back to a La Nina. I'm just worried about it right now, which for Montana, that isn't necessarily a terrible thing for the winter, because if we look at an El Nino and what it means for the northern Rockies and northern plains, that usually means drier, warmer weather, and usually kind of a lack of winter. So if we can kind of keep those sea surface temperatures at least a little bit cooler than average or slip back into La Nina, I think it's at least on the table for us to have another pretty good bout of winter weather on the way as we head into late 25 and into 26.
Now, you grew up in agriculture, and you have family in Colorado, of course. And what are you hearing from them and from other wheat producers in Colorado and Nebraska? I know the condition ratings aren't the greatest when you move a little east to Colorado right now, especially in Nebraska.
Yes.
What are we seeing in Kansas? What are the wheat guys really focusing on in winter wheat country?
A lot of the guys that not only work for but also talk to, they're really excited right now in Kansas. As you mentioned, Nebraska has been, was one of the drier places throughout the entire spring. They've been seeing a little bit better moisture, and it's not perfect in Nebraska, but hard red winter wheat right now in Kansas, there's a lot of optimism there. The problem is that the prices, as you well know, aren't the best in the world. So what I've been hearing a lot of, and this was happening through the spring, is, a lot of these guys were grazing that off with the cattle because the cattle market's so ridiculous, and they're using that as forage for their animals. But if we're looking at just purely from a harvest standpoint, I think there's a lot of reason for optimism as long as they can avoid the hail over the next few weeks.
Now, those of us with PRF policies, we've been watching that too, and obviously we're paying attention to what you say here too, depending on where our policies are at. And you work with a lot of producers and sharing information specifically following lack of rainfall.
Right.
And what is it like working with producers and helping them understand ways to manage risk, especially livestock producers that traditionally haven't had a lot of risk management tools compared to crop farmers? What is that like, and what are some tips you have for them on the risk management front?
I love it. It's really a passion of mine, and I think that's kind of predicated on my background and the people that I enjoy working with, and even just talking with people at various conferences like what we are doing here today. So I think it's the PRF tool is something that is that should be in every rancher's toolbox because it is such an effective tool to managing that risk that if you don't see rain, you have something to help you out, in that regard. And if you do see the rain, well, then you're great. But if nothing else, at least you're covered. And I think that there's a lot of resources out there to do that. I work for a lot of different agencies. Silvius Insurance, obviously, sponsoring here for the mid-year meeting, whatnot. I work with the boys at Silvius, and I think they're fantastic. I think the products that they do, and I think the people that are able to use those products and really dial it in, make the product even better. From my standpoint, I'm just given the weather. Okay, so and I really like to take something that's in the grand scheme of things pretty complex, and I really want to simplify it to make it actionable and meaningful, so they're not guessing. I want to at least help take some of that guesswork out of the equation.
Well, and the big guess right now is just how long will these record low cattle numbers persist out in the countryside?
Right.
It's all dependent on weather.
It 100% is, and I've talked to a lot of guys that are managing their grass a little bit differently now, saying, hey, if we do see a boost in the grain markets, okay, if for whatever reason that cheap corn decides to go away one day, those guys with all those cattle, they're going to be looking for some forage. They're going to be looking for some cheaper feed. They're going to be looking for some good grass. So I tell them, I'm like, this is a great way to, even if you're sitting on the sidelines, to balance your risk, take care of your grass, because inevitably we all know that they're going to go back on grass at some point.
Now, what are some last thoughts that you want cattle producers here in Montana, across the northern plains, Rocky Mountain West, just to think about as we move into the summer months, some things they should monitor, or maybe how they can learn more about your weather forecast?
Yeah, I think it's very important that we stay vigilant. We stay on top of what this forecast is going to be doing. That's obviously my job, and also do a good job in communicating that forecast. There's so much, as you well know, Lane. There's so much information out there, misinformation, disinformation, or whatever. So the better the sources you have to help manage your business effectively, and that's what I do in terms of weather, the better off you're going to be. Just turn out all that noise, grab someone that you trust, who's got a good track record, and help them, work through what their business decisions are going to be. And that's what I do at Brian Bledsoe Weather.
Well, one thing about it I mentioned to you last night at dinner is my father-in-law mentioned to me, and I'm glad he watches some of my content. Don't know if he likes me, but he sure likes what you have to say. Maybe not the news that you share,
right.
But you have been very good in being able to give a very good heads up, especially last year. Just telling folks you might want to get some hay on hand.
Right.
Because hay's been pretty cheap.
That's the thing, and we all know how quickly that can turn, whether, if we dry things out all of a sudden and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, just simple proactive things like that. In the world of meteorology, from my perspective, we've never been better with the information that we have at our disposal. And in many cases, the messages have never been worse. So the communication of those messages, and as I said, making them be actionable, to me is paramount.
And another thing that always puts a burr under my saddle pad is just how apps on your phones are just not the most reliable either.
That's right. Yeah. And they're everywhere,
Yep.
and I think the thing to keep in mind about that is they're using free data. And a lot of times that free data is garbage. So garbage in, garbage out is basically what it boils down to. So yeah, having a weather source that you depend on and is reliable and you can trust is a big deal.
Well, again, Brian, thank you so much for sitting down with us here again. I enjoy our conversations, and I also enjoy having beers at the bar, too.
Of course.
But Brian Bledsoe Weather is a great online resource, and for all of our friends join us here today, make sure and check him out as well. And that's a member benefit of being a member of the Montana Stockgrowers. You get weather alerts that Brian produces and is sent out to producers right into their inbox. So, Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lane. Always a pleasure.
With that, friends, thanks for joining us here on the Agriculture Conversation with the LaneCast Ag Podcast. Make sure and subscribe to this and also follow along to all the Western Ag Network social media channels and tune in on radio and TV as well. Have a great day, everyone. I'm Lane Nordlund. Catch you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the LaneCast with Talkin' Ag, Lane Nordlund. For more on Lane, check out his Facebook page, Lane Nordlund Ag Broadcaster, and NordlundCommunications.com.